We'll do it live. This is Adam Henderson. I'm going to create a special video for you guys today. And I'm just going to talk about preparing for nationals. And this year is a special year for me. It's my first year playing in any Division One, Division One showing in either of World Cup or NSPC. I want to say that NSPC is a slightly more stacked this year than World Cup is, but World Cup's actually pretty stacked too. I can show it later. Kenji Matsumoto, one of the biggest names in Scrabble, is signed up for World Cup, and I find that personally very exciting because he kind of mysteriously dropped out of playing Scrabble for unknown reasons, and I mean, not completely unknown. He did kind of say a little bit in on Facebook, but that's kind of private, so I won't mention that. But lost my train of thought. I thought I'd open this talk about how different Scrabble players, at least that I have access to and could ask questions to, and I was able to get some good answers. I want to talk about their answers in this video, and one of the things Will Anderson, I think, said is that, oh, I just use Ziziva. So he's referring to this like quiz thing that Ziziva has, but for me personally, like I run into this thing where like I end up spending a lot of time that I wouldn't normally spend just in this mode. Like I'm trying to review some like high probability 8s here, and I'm clearly failing because I've only found 3 out of the 8 here. And of course, I'm not going to make this video too long, so let's just check the answers. So I miss Arsenite and Resonate. Those are a little bit tricky because the S isn't at the end of the. Let's just do one more, and then I'm trying to show you guys why it's difficult to like use this thing, because I was thinking about, I once tried to use this thing and it just wasn't for me, and I was trying to think about why. All right, so here's Ironiest. How many are in here? Oh, there's only one. It's only Ironiest. Okay, so I guess go to the next one. The thing is, the other thing is you can move these around, these tiles around, but it's such a clunky tile. Like I would rather have like physical tiles that I can just move around really fast. And yeah, and like on if I'm playing on Woogles has this thing where it'll automatically, if you move and just hover it, it'll automatically adjust the positioning, which is a lot easier as far as so yeah. And now I'm just kind of in a like weird, because when I do these things, I'm just looking for like common suffixes and prefixes. I'm a little bit nervous doing this video, and yeah, I'm not seeing this one, so let's see what this was. Oh, Gator'd. Yeah, that is a tough one to find. Anyway, that's one of the new ones too. All right, give me a moment. So I started this video, or I started the idea for this video by asking Mac Miller through an email. I just told him that I really looked up because I have my own way of like preparing for major tournaments like this, and I've been like preparing so hard, but the thought came to me like maybe there's just something I'm doing, not doing that I should be doing. So I thought to ask Mac Miller in an email, and I hadn't had the idea for this video when I first wrote him. So I wrote him and I said, "Hey Mac, I'm trying to prepare for World Cup, and I'd really like look up to you as a top player. I'm trying not to stress out too much about and tell myself, oh, it's just a vacation. But for me, it's an expensive vacation around 2K. It is almost exactly $2,000 I'm spending on this. Um, so I'm also trying to prepare in my own ways. I thought it'd be interesting if I could ask a top player like you how you prepare for a major tournament. Thanks, Adam." So Mac responded, "Hey Adam, that's a great question. And the first thing I'd say is that there's no right or wrong way to prepare, and the most important thing to do is what's right for you." So I'd like to stop there for a second. I'll just highlight it as I'm going through. I'll highlight this one yellow. It's an interesting concept that there's no right or wrong way. And I think I know what he was getting at when he said this, because as you'll see as I'm going through each of the top experts, I tried, at first I was trying to keep it to just the top experts, but then I was like, oh, maybe I should ask Andy Hong, and I think I'm too late to actually get an answer from Andy Hong, so I'll get his answer in a later video, because I am interested in what Andy says. So Andy's not a top expert, but he's just a friend of mine. I knew he'd probably respond. But yeah, this video is mostly, I think, around 1,900, 200, 2,000 players that I asked how they prepared. And so you'll see that each person has almost like a completely different answer. So it's like Mac Miller is right in that each Scrabble player prepares in like kind of a radically different ways. And none of these ways are really wrong. At least none of what they told me sounded like completely wrong. I would say there is a wrong way to study for for a Scrabble tournament, and the wrong way would be to study like nines too much, or 10-letter words even. I personally love learning the nines and tens. I always have to fight off the temptation to study them more than I already do, because they're just such interesting words at that length. And they're not words that most other, even top like 1700, 1800s are going to know. So like if you, on one hand, the studying those words aren't going to help you, but on the other hand, if somehow they ever did come up, they would be great words to know because you might get a challenge out of them. But yeah, I'd say if there was a wrong way to prepare for a tournament, it would be spending too much time studying nines and tens and not enough time studying the 2 through 8s. So I disagree with Mac that there's no wrong way, but I think Mac would probably agree that studying 9 and 10-letter words is not the most effective way to study for nationals. I don't think anybody's ever said that they did that, but it just came to mind because they are very tempting to like study. And anyway, I've actually rejoined the NASPA Scrabble Dictionary Committee, and I'll be doing a lot of work for the long word list. So I'll be spending a lot of time with those long words, and I'm sure it'll be completely wasted, but I'll at least enjoy it. Let's move on. I told John Chu that I'd wait until after World Cup to get started on that. My pre-nationals regimen has actually changed a lot over the years. The first couple nationals I went to, I prepared intensively, reviewing words probably 5 hours a day for at least a month leading up to it. I had a poor experience with this at some point where I was super stressed leading up to the tournament as a result. This made a good portion of my summer unenjoyable, and my anxiety also affected both my enjoyment of the tournament and my playing level there. So then after that, I sort of shifted radically in the other direction, basically not studying at all beforehand until under the theory that would lead to little or no stress. This didn't work out great either because I found myself feeling much less confident in my play and getting frustrated with myself for making mistakes. I felt should have been avoidable where I'm more prepared. Um, I don't really have too much to add here. I think everything Max said here just makes a lot of sense. Like when he was younger, he would study tons. That's pretty much what I'm doing, preparing for my first Division One showing. I'm sure I won't be doing as much studying in future Division One tournaments. Fingers crossed, I'll still be eligible to play in them. But yeah, I think what he did makes a lot of sense. He started out, he found that it was giving him too much anxiety by preparing as much as he did. I'm in the boat where I've done a lot of studying, but I also kind of know that the danger of feeling too much anxiety and too much expectations is there, and I also know that there's a good chance I could have a really bad tournament in this first showing at Division One. I could come in last place, but I think even if I come in last place, it doesn't change that I love the game. It doesn't change that I'm a really good player. My rating is over 1900 on Woogles, and my rating would go down in quite a bit if I had a disastrous tournament in WePo, but my rating in WePo doesn't really that matter to me as much as my NASPA rating does. So I'm hoping that between all of these things that I just said, I kind of mentally can prepare myself like it doesn't really matter. It is just kind of a vacation, like I said. And I'm doing the thing I love doing, which is playing Scrabble at a high level. So I'm hoping that I won't be too stressed out about it, but I do have high functioning autism, so I'm sure there's going to be some level of stress there. But anyway, give me a little break here. By the way, I'm not going to share how I actually prepare in this video. I do a lot of preparing, and I do think some of the things I do are pretty special. I did have one person that said he watched my YouTube videos, and I'm very grateful for the few people that do watch my YouTube videos. I'm trying to grow my channel, so at this point I would like to say please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and even if you want to say something in the chat, as long as it's not something nasty, please go ahead and do so. Yeah. And so I don't have time in this video. It's going to be a long video as it is, and I knew that going into this video. So please watch my next video, which I will go into how I personally study, and it's quite unique. I'm kind of a unique guy, and I kind of go out of my way to not do the same thing the top experts do. It's almost like I just kind of want to be a unique person, and so that's why I've done that the way I've done it. This year I'm trying to strike a balance. My goal is to review all the 4 to 8 letters. He puts in parentheses 100K words in total before the tournament. I've started this a few weeks ago, and I've been doing around 3,000 words a day. which is typically which typically takes me around 2 hours. This feels like a good investment. It's productive, but doesn't feel like a huge chunk of my days, so it isn't causing me too much stress. I want to stop here, and um, I want to kind of just back up here because 3,000 words in 2 hours is a lot of words, and I'm not sure how he does it. I've watched his videos, and he seems to find valid bingos in like milliseconds. So he's obviously got some sort of talent, uh, ability. I don't know how to put it, but yeah, it's not a normal human ability that he has. I just want to slow down and say, like, if you, to my average viewer out there, maybe 100 words a day is more doable than 3,000. Um, I will say for Mac, he's like he mentions in this next paragraph, he hasn't learned any new words since 2014. So it's all been review, and it's been just review for him for the 2 through 8s for the last 10 years. So that's why he can do it so quickly. Well, at least one of the reasons. So it's worth mentioning that at least since 2014 or so, my word study prep has consisted almost exclusively of reviewing words, since there haven't really been new words for me to learn. Regardless of where you're currently at with your word knowledge, I'd probably recommend focusing on solidifying what you already know, since trying to cram in new words often leads to poor retention of those words, and maybe even loss of consistency with words you've already known. I kind of agree with that. I think you need to keep a balance between reviewing words you've already learned, um, because if you're exclusively just learning new words, then you're likely to forget a whole bunch of words you've already learned. So I would say I would agree with what he says there. Other than word knowledge, I'll probably try to play a bunch of games against TastyBot to keep my play finding sharp. Oh, so this is the major part where I actually disagree with Mac Miller. I think you should be playing lots of games, and I would highly recommend playing on Woogles than anywhere else, because Woogles is just where the best players play now. And if you want to get to the Division 1 level, that's kind of what this video is aimed towards. I've just made it myself, and I'm aiming it towards viewers that may want to aspire to get to that level. I highly recommend playing against human opponents for most of your games. Of course, you can play a lot of games against the bots as well, but I think my only main criticism of Mac and what he does, because you can see he plays a lot against probably Hasty Bot, but he's got the series against Best Bot. I think he's doing himself a disservice by not playing enough games against human opponents. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on. And I think this got accidentally copied over twice. All right, so give me a break and we'll continue. So the next player is Nigel. He is a friend of mine. He's from Oregon. His rating is well over 2,000 in NASPA. I don't know. I think his rating in WePo is quite low compared to his NASPA rating, but I would go by his NASPA rating as far as his strength. I'm not sure what Nigel would say about that, but he's going to be playing in World Cup, so he's way underrated, and Yeah, it kind of worries me, like having too many people underrated playing in my division. It doesn't bode well for me, but uh, I can't think. I think he might be the only one that I know is way underrated that's playing in my division. So as long as it's just him, I guess it's not too much of a problem. Let's see. Yeah, like every time he one thing I admire about Nigel is that he goes to all the local tournaments, including the ones here in Washington State, uh, the one dayers, and he's not afraid to play in divisions where like everybody is rated much lower than him. And I talked to him, like other players like Rafi, they won't do that because they're protecting their rating, and I get it. Like if I was had a rating over 2,000, I'd probably do the same. I wouldn't go to tournaments that where everyone's rated at least 300 points less. That can be dangerous. But like Nigel's fearless. He goes to these tournaments. He usually goes 6-0, and like I say, net he's just been gaining rating points on these tournaments where everybody's rated a lot less than him. So I mean, kudos to him. It takes balls to do that. I don't really have anything to disagree with on what he says here. I'm just going to paraphrase it. Basically, he's saying that he studies by using Ziziva's card box, which I showed you at the beginning. I don't like it. I don't like how it's very clunky to shuffle the tiles on it, and it just seems like it's a time waster for me. I'm spending way too much time on each set of anagrams, where I'll show you what I actually do, and it allows me to get through the words much faster. Because you also have to click on like next word each time, which also is a time waster. So I just find it's very time consuming to use Ziziva's card box. It's not something I recommend. Um, yeah, basically he just says he uses card box and he likes to study by probability. It's pretty standard thing for a top expert to say. I can't really disagree with studying by probability, even though it's not something I personally do. Josh Sokol, I didn't really expect him to say a whole lot. He did say this short amount, so I will point it out. He says, I don't have any sort of preparation. At most, I just like to play a lot and do aerolith a month or so beforehand. I feel like I can make an entire video about why I hate aerolith so much. So I will leave that for another video. But in short, the reason I hate aerolith is it has to do with my autism. I get a lot of anxiety for anything that uh, where I feel like I'm in a rush to have to do it, and there's like a timer click, just slowly counting down. That's the main thing. It's just that timer that's slowly counting down, and then I can't do that as well as the other top experts do. So it's gonna be like I'm lucky to get half of the word wall done if it's just a random set of sevens and eights. So, and the other thing with those word walls is I don't think those word walls um, are very good because they contain so many common words, but they also contain so many like super low probability words. I try to avoid those in my own study. I do like the low probs, but not the ones that are super low prob. Um, we're going to move on to Kenji. Kenji had a lot to say naturally, and let me just give him a break real quick. So as I'm recording this video, Andy Hong did respond, so I probably will be able to get his response in at the end of this video. So let's read what Kenji's response is. The first thing I tried to do is generate the top 3 plays in every position. The reason I tried to do this is to avoid autopilot, which is a major concern when playing lots of Scrabble. Now, he also goes into depth on the second part, which I'll get to, but I want to kind of skip to the bottom here because I did kind of ask him to clarify what autopilot meant. And here's his answer. Generally, there are certain plays that are going to be found within 10 seconds in the most obvious part of the board that get rid of the tiles on your rack that are obviously the clunkiest, duplicated, etc. You don't want it to fall into the pattern of auto-playing those plays too quickly, even though they are usually best. So that this is probably one of the smartest things. No, it has to be the smartest thing I've actually heard any of. And it's kind of unsurprising that it's coming from Kenji, that the smartest thing. He is really good at Scrabble strategy. And one of the things when it comes to me in Scrabble strategy is I like to be very practical. And the problem is that compared to most like other players, especially younger ones, I can't keep up with them, and the younger ones tend to play very quickly. And the problem with me for following this advice is that I'm already playing so slowly that if I try to, I think he says something that he tries to generate the top 3 plays. Where, does he say that somewhere in here? Yeah. He tries to generate the top 3 plays in every position. So, about that. I thought that was another really smart idea, and it's brilliant actually. So, as a practical matter, you're not so much thinking about the actual top 3 plays because you're almost never going to actually find that the actual ones that are going to be generated by like a top computer program. But it's more important rather than that is to find 3 plays that you think are good. And it's also helpful if they're in like different parts of the board or use different numbers of tiles or are different in some way, because having 2 of those 3 options being too similar, it's almost like you're only considering 2 options in that case. It's really smart to actually try to do this, but when I actually try to put it into practice playing 20-minute games on Woogles, which I do feel like a 20-minute game on Woogles is very similar to what you'd play as a 25-minute game and over the board, because there's just so much time spent just counting up plays. The math part of adding up the plays is just so time consuming, and it does take about 5 minutes away. So I do feel like 20 minutes is comparable to Woogles. 20-minute Woogles games comparable to 25 minutes. Anyway, so I'm already doing so many things, and so I would say this is kind of a luxury if you actually have enough time that you can do this. One thing I would say is even if you're low on time, like later in the game, to at least take maybe 10 or 15, 20, 30 seconds for each play, even if you're low on time. So that way you're kind of avoiding missing like a really big play. Another thing is The other two traps is that you can find your bingo and then play it immediately in the first spot you should see it. You should at least take a few seconds to find all the spots on the board that your bingo is playable. It's happened so many times where you play a bingo on the board and then you like hit yourself in the head. Oh, it plays over here for 20, 30, 40, 50 more points. uh, so there's that. And then similar to the first one where you have to be careful when you're playing a bingo, you should also take a little bit more time on your play when you've got like a Z on your rack or an X, sometimes even a Q or a J. With those power tiles, it's very common to miss a play that scores 20 or 30 more points, even though you found a good play. When it comes to having a rack that contains a power tile, look for a better play, which is a common chess phrase. Applies very much to Scrabble. I'm going to get through the rest of this. Let's see. So that's the autopilot. I would say, yeah, this first part is actually brilliant. The only criticism I say of this first part is that it's very time consuming to generate the top three plays, and it may not be practical. So the second part is something that does not going to apply to hardly any of my viewers, because most of my viewers are not rated over 1900 in either of the two rating systems, WePo or NASPA, and that includes me. I'm not rating over 1900. So basically none of this really applies, but what he likes to do is he does a lot of what he calls adjustments, and yeah, so he's just adjusting he's studying other players. I'm trying to go a little quicker here. I'm going to read this part. I don't really recommend you do any player exploitation until you get to... Okay, my husband texted me. I got to take this. Give me a moment. Okay, so I got to finish this up. My husband needs me to pick him up. All right, so I don't recommend you do any player exploitation until you get to 1900, at least, probably 2000. The amount of things you have to think about once you reach that level are just much more numerous, especially amongst players who don't always find every word quote. I don't exactly know what he means by this. This guy is a genius, though. I'd be curious if he could expound on that. Some of it is general, and other aspects are player specific. He did name some players here. I just put brackets here, any specific players. I don't really want to write 3 paragraphs tearing apart any specific players. He did name players here, but I'm pretty sure he just picked out experts at random. So I took that out because the experts he named could have been anyone. But could I? Sure, and so many other players. But if you actually analyzed, not watched, analyzed every play and look for mistakes, you can find mistakes by just about any other player. And if you characterize those mistakes by type, you are bound to find patterns. That's very interesting, and I do think that would be very time consuming. And I agree that it would be helpful, and I also agree that it would only be helpful if you're at the very top like he is. So yeah, mostly I think I just agree with him. All right, I gotta get moving here. Austin Shen. I wanted to interview Austin just because I had heard from other people that he's a advocate for keeping yourself physically fit at the top levels. So I wanted to see if he had anything to say about like exercise as a preparation for nationals. So basically he said, exercising to me, or at least being physically in good shape, isn't necessarily a part of my prep per se, but more of a positive byproduct of being able to compete at my best for as long as possible across the entire tournament. I did used to work out by going to the gym in the past. That's something I've been doing is I lift weights, but I'm not like doing it to try and like impress anybody with my muscles. I'm mostly just doing it. I I actually think besides it just being really healthy to do strength training, I actually do think for me personally it helps me a little bit with uh, my confidence, which is kind of a weakness of mine when it comes to like really big tournaments like this. So I do like endorse going to the gym as far as like if you're taking Scrabble really seriously, which you kind of have to to play in Division 1. So recently I've been picked up pickleball, which I guess is more cardio. So I guess I would definitely recommend a lot of cardio. That's very important for just longevity, living a long time. But so you don't have like heart issues. But I do think some strength training as well. All right. Let's see. All right. That's pretty much it for him. Mechanic. He basically says he studies by probability. He said, ironically, that his best nationals ever was when he did no prep at all. He didn't really have a whole lot to say. Let's see. And then finally, Will Anderson. I do a lot of Ziziva quizzing, and I try to play at least one bigger tournament to knock rust off. Then when I try to work on more specific skills like in-game solving. Oh, no, that's interesting. He's the first one that mentioned in-game solving. I personally, in-game solving is one of those things that other experts love, and I just kind of hate analyzing in-game positions, but it's just a weakness of mine, I guess. And he says something about reviewing bingos on the Stairmaster. So that's what he does. Let me create one last one for Andy Hong. So Andy says he goes systematically through the shorter words and their hooks, and then run through as many 7s and 8s as possible and play a lot of games. That is probably, I don't know if that anybody else actually mentions that you play a lot of games. That's actually probably the most important piece of advice that I would probably give personally, and something I do a lot is I just play a lot of games on Woogles against human opponents, because I mean it's just kind of a no-brainer. Of course, you have to play a lot of games. Even Josh Sokol, Josh Sokol says he plays a lot of games as well. Studying too much versus if you're doing, more than 50% of your prep is studying words, you're doing it wrong. That's another way you could go wrong, is by doing too much study and not enough games. The strategic element is just so important. I think Josh Sokol recently said in his recent Twitch video, like, word knowledge isn't everything. Strategy is just such an important part of the game, and just studying strategy, like by reading like Kenji's books or like in theory is one thing, but just kind of playing a lot of games and just kind of learning by just through experience, like doing things like setups are just one of those things that, and knowing when to be aggressive and when to play defensive, those are things that the only way you can really learn that is by playing a lot of games. So that's all I got for you guys. I will go into more on how I personally study for a big tournament like this in my next video, and probably give you some more thoughts about these type of things. So if you like my video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.